The Marlins have made their first move just a few days before the trade deadline. They sent Nick Fortes to the Tampa Bay Rays.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I've been a diehard Marlins fan since I was 12 years old, and I've podcasted about the team for the last 4 seasons. You can hit me up on X at Jeremiah Geiger 2, and thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Don't forget to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And on today's show, I'm going to talk about the Nick Fortes trade, what the Marlins got back for him. Troy Johnston is meeting the team in St. Louis. He's heading to the show. Finally, a much-deserved call-up for the long-time minor leaguer, and I could not be happier for Troy Johnston. He's earned it. He deserves it. It's awesome. Also talk about Edward Cabrera. He made his final start before the deadline yesterday on Monday. Will he be moved? And now we just have to sit back, and we're going to see a lot of trade rumors. Will the Marlins move him? That's the big question. Let's talk about this Nick Fortes deal. So the Marlins have been carrying 3 catchers on the active roster now for a while. It was a three players each getting turns behind the plate, sometimes playing first base if you were Liam Hicks, sometimes DHing when you're Augustin Ramirez. But it was very clear that Nick Fortes was not going to be part of the Marlins' future. Joe Mack, one of the Marlins' best prospects, is waiting in the wings in AAA. He's close to Major League ready. So the odds that Nick Fortes was going to be on this team in 2026 were very low. The question was, could you get any value, any positive value for him back in a potential trade? And they did just that. They trade him to the Rays, who ironically, just an hour or two before this move was reported, maybe sooner, they traded their own catcher, Danny Jansen, to the Milwaukee Brewers. So the Rays trade a catcher, they get back a catcher, and in doing so, they give to the Marlins Matthew Etzel, who's a Double-A outfielder. He's been assigned to Double-A Pensacola this season in the Rays organization. He's played 56 games for their Double-A affiliate. What I like about Etzel, he's got good speed and good plate discipline. On the season, Etzel's hitting .230 with a WRC plus of 115, but he's drawing walks at a 17.2% clip. And he's got good speed, stole 17 bases so far this season. A season ago, he stole 45. I would like to see the strikeouts get cut down. He's striking out at 26% this season, at a 26% rate. But when I look at this in terms of what the Marlins gave up, and they gave up a catcher who wasn't part of the long-term plans for this team, is very limited offensively. Although he has good bat-to-ball skills, he's not a real good hitter. Let's be honest here. So you get a piece that, at the minimum, is an intriguing development piece that you could try to tap into a little bit more power, maybe a little bit more bat-to-ball, and you have 2 real good skills to work with, plate discipline and speed. So I'm happy with the return for the Marlins. What this means for the current roster for Miami, you're down to 2 catchers, Liam Hicks and Augustin Ramirez. Augustin Ramirez, I'm of the opinion, should be moved off the catching position completely. Just end the experiment. And I know some people are going to say, well, just give him more time, let him develop there. In my opinion, when you have Joe Mack coming up to the majors sooner rather than later, and he's very solid defensively, it makes more sense to just let Augustine learn first base Give him a first baseman, try to learn that position so he can be your first baseman of the future, and just go out and slug. Because when you have Mack up there, I view Joe Mack as the everyday catcher for the Marlins' future. Not to mention Liam Hicks is there too. Hicks will probably, when Joe Mack eventually comes up, and this is more geared toward 2026, I would imagine Liam Hicks is more of the backup to Joe Mack, assuming Joe Mack's on the opening day roster, which he very well could be and should be, arguably. I think Mack's done enough to warrant a call-up this season to the major leagues. But Fortes and his defensive presence is gone. So you're down to two rookies. Liam Hicks, who before this season had never played above Double-A, and Agustin Ramirez, who statistically he struggles defensively. He's up in the major leagues because of his bat. The defense is a work in progress. And so Fortes was that glue that kind of held the position together with the pitching staff, pitch framing, blocking. Fortes was that guy. That's where his value resided in. And that's why the Rays went out and got him. They know the value that Fortes brings to a pitching staff. So right now, it's pretty clear the Marlins might have a step back in terms of defensive production. It's only Hicks and Ramirez now. Ramirez is going to have those growing pains. They're going to give him every opportunity to catch. I don't see how this is going to work long term. I think it's inevitable that he moves off the catching position. But for 2026, it's very clear now Joe Mack should be up. Joe Mack's going to be the catcher of the Marlins' future. And I'm excited for that. And I wish Nick Fortes nothing but the best in Tampa Bay. I think they got a leader, a real good defensive-minded catcher who's going to provide stability to a pitching staff and who's going to be there not just for this season. He's not a rental. He still has control left. And the Marlins, they get an outfielder with good plate discipline, a good approach at the plate, and he's somebody that can come into your system and just work on getting better every single day. Now, when Nick Fortes was moved, that opened up a spot on the 40-man roster and ultimately the 26-man roster. And reports came out this morning that Troy Johnston was heading up to meet the team in St. Louis. This is incredible. Troy Johnston, of any of the Marlins minor leaguers, deserves to be called up to the big leagues, deserves to get a shot in the majors. I'm going to talk about Troy right after this. This episode is brought to you by Gameday Hue, and this is the hat that I'm wearing. For Marlins fans like me, this one hits the mark. Gameday Hue makes clean, no-logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every professional and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile styles that work on game day, on the golf course, or anywhere in between. The gear is subtle, stylish, and you can still rep the Marlins. The hat pairs perfectly with your other Marlins stuff. It's got the blue right here. It's got the black right here. It's a subtle way of expressing your fandom, and it just adds to the lineup. And it's perfect for golfing. If you go out to the golf course, I don't, but a lot of you guys do. Top golf even. Rep the hat, and also you can rep the gloves. They got split shade golf gloves here, and right now you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GamedayHue.com. That's GamedayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now's the time to load up. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GamedayHue.com, code MLB15. I appreciate all the everyday listeners making Locked On Marlins a part of your daily routine Monday through Friday. Troy Johnston is heading to the show. I could not be more happy for Troy as the baseball player and as the person that he is. He's been in the Marlins organization now since 2019. That's a long time. It's a long time waiting and waiting to get your shot, even when you feel that you've deserved your opportunity. More often than not, I think back to the 2023 season in which Troy hit 307 with 26 bombs and 116 RBIs and didn't get a call up in 23 or after a good spring training in 2024. There was no reason over the last 7 years where Troy Johnston couldn't make the major leagues. Like, even this season in particular. First base. It started with Matt Mervis. First, they brought in Matt Mervis. That experiment didn't work out. And now they're rolling with Liam Hicks and Eric Wagman. Wagman has been a disaster. Troy Johnston has just done his thing. He's the ultimate professional. This season, he's hitting 252, an OPS of 772 with 12 bombs. And get this, 31 stolen bases, a career high in the steals department. Here's a story about Troy. So before Locked On, I had a podcast called Marlins 9. And it didn't have a ton of followers. It didn't have a ton of traction. But I did it, and I liked doing it. And I reached out to Troy about potentially coming onto the podcast. You know, a professional athlete in the Marlins organization. And he was so generous and kind, and we set up a time, and we had a really nice conversation about his journey throughout baseball, throughout the years, you know, from high school onward. And he's just a down-to-earth guy that loves playing ball. And he's the ultimate professional. He's humble about it. He knows that he should have been called up. Everybody knows that he should have been given a shot by now. The production speaks for itself. But it looks like this is finally the moment. And what I hope for is that it's not just a 2 or 3 game stint or a week stint. I want him to finish the season on the Marlins roster and battle for a spot on this team. You ever see The Rookie? The Rookie was a movie, Dennis Quaid. And Dennis Quaid, you know, he's older. He was a teacher. He had a hurt shoulder, but he goes back years later and goes to a tryout and makes the major leagues. And he just walks in to the big league stadium. And it's just like, wow, he's finally here. When I was a kid, I used to dream about being a major leaguer, and it didn't happen for me. For Troy Johnston, it's happening. And I can't imagine what he's feeling right now. Just the sheer joy of getting the call to the show. It's awesome. It's awesome. He hopefully plays a lot of first base for the Marlins and just goes out and hits, because that's his calling card, is the hitting. He's not the best defender. You know, he's limited defensively. He's a left-hander. So, you know, he's not going to go out and play the middle infield or play third base. He'll play a corner outfield spot, play first base. But he hits. And when you hit and you provide good results, then that's what matters. And inevitably, somebody is going to take notice. And finally, the Marlins did the right thing by giving him this opportunity. Now it's about proving everybody wrong that doubted you, proving everybody right that believed in you, and going out there and performing. I mean, we're looking at a player. He was a former 17th round draft pick back in 2019 out of Gonzaga. So he spent the better part of, what is this, 6 years or 7 years really in the Marlins organization. You throw out 2020 because they didn't have minor league baseball, but he's waited 7 years for this moment. And as much as, you can dive into prospect rankings, and you're not going to see Troy Johnston's name at the front of a prospect ranking. It doesn't matter. Who cares? This is the most excited I've been for a prospect call-up in a long, long time because of how much work he's put in, the kind of player and person that he is, the production that he's done consistently year after year without getting the call-up, and goes out there and does his job day in and day out. From a 17th round draft pick who made his professional debut for a minor league team that's not even affiliated with the Marlins anymore. He made his professional baseball debut with the Batavia Muck Dogs. They're now a collegiate summer team, formerly a low A short season team in the Marlins organization. That should tell you how long he's been in the Marlins system and how long he's waited for this moment. So he swings from the left side. Wagaman swings from the right side. I would expect the majority of his time in the majors to come at first base. Does that mean now that Hicks is going to move back off of first, just only catch with Augustine and be the catching tandem there, and Wagaman, who swings right-handed, and Johnston platoon at first? That would make sense to me. Wagaman, his time's got to be running out sooner rather than later because he's just not cutting it as a major leaguer. It's frustrating because you wish the best for Eric Wagaman, but Troy Johnston should get the majority of the reps at first base. He should get every opportunity at first base and consistent playing time. That's another thing. So in the minor leagues, when you're playing every single day, you're in a routine, you're in a groove, you're seeing live pitching in a live environment, and you go to the majors. What I don't want to happen is Troy just be an extra body there and ride the bench. But we're going to see what happens. But for all the listeners and watchers out there, this is a story of perseverance. It's about believing in yourself and being the ultimate professional day in and day out and never giving up until you get the call. There's been times, I'm sure, where Troy thought it would never happen with the Marlins. But he kept battling, he kept hitting, he kept on doing his thing, and now on July 29th, he's going to St. Louis, and he's going to wear that Marlins uniform. Edward Cabrera had his final start before the trade deadline. I'm going to talk about his results from that one. It wasn't the best, but it was still efficient, and he's still going to be a hot commodity at this year's deadline. That's coming up right after this. Locked On Marlins is on all the major podcast platforms out there, so you can listen to it on the go. But of course, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Edward Cabrera wrapped up the first half of his season against the St. Louis Cardinals. He completed 6 innings of work, gave up 4 hits, 2 runs, both earned, walked 3, struck out 4. He got the loss. The Cardinals won this game 7-1. And although Cabrera wasn't at his best, it wasn't like the last couple of starts in which he, or the last 3 starts, which he hadn't walked anybody. The control faltered a little bit. Cabrera was still efficient. And that's what I like seeing just, 3-4 days away from the deadline. It's July 29th as I'm recording this. The trade deadline is in 2 days. So the Marlins have a huge decision to make. Edward Cabrera on the season, 18 starts, 3.35 ERA, 94 innings, 96 strikeouts. It's not a small sample size. This is the pitcher that he's developed into. And even on the days in which he didn't have his best stuff against the Cardinals on the road, he still gritted through 6 innings and only gave up 2 runs. That's what makes me believe in Cabrera even more than those 7 shutout innings. Like, yeah, you see how good he is, but to become a complete pitcher, you're going to have days in which sometimes it doesn't go your way. You have a tough umpire. Your control's not spot on as it usually is. And you battle through and you find a way to complete 6. That's what you like to see, and that's what other teams like to see as well. Cabrera's name's going to be floated around trade rumors for the next 2 days unless a move happens as I'm recording this or today. It's going to be very, very interesting. And I wonder what the Marlins are going to do. So the Cubs are the most obvious fit. The Cubs have Owen Casey and Jackson Wiggins. Wiggins is a stud prospect. He's legit. Owen Casey is major league ready. He's blocked in the majors right now. There's no room for him in Chicago, but there would be room for him in Miami, and he would be an immediate plug and play for the Marlins. The question is, Cabrera has 3 more years of control. The asking price for Edward Cabrera should be this high. You should hold out for a prospect package surrounding Owen Casey and Jackson Wiggins. The other factor in a potential Cabrera trade is a Sandy Alcantara trade. Yesterday on the show, I did a bold prediction segment in which I said both Cabrera and Sandy are going to get traded. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I still believe it's a possibility, but I would rather keep Cabrera if I had to trade one of them. Just one. I would keep Cabrera and trade Sandy. In the post-game interview after last night's game, it was emotional. Edward Cabrera loves being here. He loves being in this organization, on this team. And, from a personal standpoint, as a fan, I've watched him throughout the growing years, from a pitcher that was doubted and inconsistent. And there was questions of him sticking in the rotation to now being potentially the biggest trade chip in baseball this year's deadline. It's incredible. We saw glimpses of it. In fact, a few years ago, I was at the Coliseum, the Oakland A's Coliseum. They don't even have a city name. They play in Sacramento. They're just the Athletics. But I watched Edward Cabrera pitch against the A's, and he pitched 8 innings that day. And it was an ace-like performance. And you saw those glimpses of it. And you saw what he could become. And now fast forward 3 years later, that type of pitcher is here. And he's found himself. And now just as soon as he's found himself and what he can do, and I truly believe it's for real, and you're looking at a frontline starter for years to come. Edward Cabrera is just 27 years old. It's almost ironic that the Marlins would trade him as soon as he figures it out. With the 3 years of control, they don't have to. There's a world in which they choose to build around him and to frontline the rotation next season with Yuri Perez and Edward Cabrera. That's a 2-headed monster, folks. That's pure gas. That's pure stuff. and that's going to be pure results. But this team isn't where they want to be at yet. They're still finding their identity long term. They're 50-55. They're not going to make the playoffs this season. They're not going to make a push for the playoffs, is what I should say, because I'm never going to count out the Miami Marlins until they're officially eliminated. But they need talent. They need more talent in this farm system. We saw what they did last year at the trade deadline. A third of their roster was gone. Peter Bendix has a plan in place. We're seeing early results of this plan. I mean, look at the team right now. 5 games under 500, right at the trade deadline. You'll take that if you're a Marlins fan. I thought this team was going to lose 100 games. They're not going to lose 100. There's there's a shot that they get to 75, high 70s in the win department. Miles ahead of what they were a year ago. But the question is, do you trade Cabrera now at his highest value and get back some crazy amount of prospects that I'm coming on to the show being like, what a return, Peter Bendix aced it? Or do you view Cabrera as a building block? Because that's kind of what I boil down this season to, is who's a building block, who's not. And I go around the outfield and the infield, and I can list you just a few building blocks. Nothing crazy. Jesus Sanchez isn't. Kyle Stowers is. I would argue Kyle Stowers is the only true building block that I wouldn't consider moving. In the infield, Otto Lopez, Xavier Edwards. Otto Lopez, it's safe to say, is a building block. You're not moving him this trade deadline. You're not moving Xavier Edwards this deadline. First base and third base, we've talked about that. Massive holes. And hopefully Troy Johnston can go up to first base and solve the issue offensively. Catcher, there's no more Nick Fortes. He wasn't part of the long-term plans of this team. Augustin Ramirez is. The question for Augustin, he's got to step it up defensively. Otherwise, they're going to be forced, whether this season or next season, to move him off of the position. Pitching staff. Yuri Perez. Yuri Perez is the only guy, on the Major League roster right now that's untouchable. Edward Cabrera is in that category of, it looks like he should be a building block, but is he in reality? What do you guys think? Do you think Cabrera should be here in 2026? He has 3 more years of control. He's cheap. It's not like we're looking at Edward Cabrera saying, oh, he has this $17 million contract. There's no way Bruce Sherman can afford him. I mean, he doesn't hit free agency till 2029, and he'll be in arbitration. So there's a world in which you keep him, in which you extend Cabrera. I know I'm just throwing that out there. But based off the production speaks for itself. And Cabrera is somebody who realistically will frontline this rotation with Yuri Perez if he's not traded. Here's my final prediction on the Cabrera saga. I think they move him. I do. I have a feeling that Peter Bendix is still going to be making moves this trade deadline. The Fortes trade was just the first domino to fall, and there's going to be more moves to follow, and the biggest one of them all will be Cabrera. I think he shocks the world and gets moved for a prospect haul, and the Marlins will get a letter grade of A. Now, as we wrap up the show, Sandy Alcantara is pitching today. This might be his last start in a Marlins uniform. In St. Louis. Ironically, that's the team who he started out with, who traded Sandy to the Marlins. And now he starts in St. Louis It all comes full circle. Life is a cycle. It might be an emotional next couple of days. I expect it to. I don't expect this team to stand pat. I expect their moves to be made. And I got you covered here on Locked On Marlins. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Marlins. I appreciate you guys for listening or watching. And until next time, guys, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.